Welcome to the PDX files. Each week we dive into the weird and the unexplained here in the Pacific Northwest and beyond. I am Peej.
And I'm Mac.
What are we talking about this week, Mac?
Well, today it's kind of an interesting. I know we've done a little bit, kind of a deep dive into the Foo Fighters back in World War II. This is kind of another kind of throwback to that era, and what was popularly called before Rage Against the Machine, the Battle of Los Angeles. So this is a pretty famous or maybe infamous, depending on your viewpoint, event that has never really been explained away.
Right on. Well, we've got, as usual, a video that we're going to be viewing and stopping in points and reacting to. And
Quite literally everything that we do.
so just want to make sure that we have some predictability built into our viewers and listeners here to the show. And without further ado, here we go.
February 24th, 1942, Los Angeles, California. It's less than 3 months since the Japanese Imperial Fleet launched a surprise attack on American forces at Pearl Harbor, killing 2,400 and bringing the United States fully into World War II. On the home front, the possibility of another attack on American soil is now very real, especially in the nation's biggest coastal cities.
There's widespread fear that Japan will attack the U.S. mainland next, and the U.S. military has vowed never to be caught off guard again.
So to bolster its defenses, anti-aircraft guns have been placed all around the city, bunkers have been built, and air raid protocols have been drilled into the population.
After Pearl Harbor, the United States has been practicing blackout drills in every coastal city out of fear of an aerial attack.
The purpose of these blackouts is so that enemy planes can't see the lights of the city.
The enemy might send hundreds of bombers to fly towards American cities and drop bombs almost indiscriminately across any urban zone. At night, it's very hard to engage in aerial navigation. However, the lights of a city could make it very obvious if you were near your target.
By now, Los Angeles has been through so many blackouts, the LA Times has nicknamed it the City of Shadows.
The city's ordeal begins with a typical blackout drill on the night of February 24th, 1942.
No lights anywhere. Not a cigarette is allowed to be lit on the street for fear of giving away any type of location to a potential enemy. Even all the radio stations in LA go completely silent.
Yeah, I mean, that's to me, it's kind of, the reason why I like that clip there, kind of sets up kind of the mindset.
Sorry.
No, you're good. It kind of sets up the mindset of where people were at. And, it is kind of interesting to think about an American city like LA, like that kind of thing happening today. Like just the fact that they had to do that in LA, or even in Portland here, if we had to do those types of things nowadays, I don't think we'd be able to even do that. I mean, I don't think you can mobilize
for a variety of reasons. Not the least of which, I mean, if you can imagine 1942 LA in terms of the number of buildings and structures that emit light compared to now, for sure. And
being in that wartime mentality is just God, crazy.
And just the level of, and it probably, I don't know if they'll go into that in this video, as I was actually telling you off air, is that I had not seen the video, so these are true reactions on my end. But the level of patriotism to participate in something like that would not be existent today.
No, you'd have 50% of the people like, oh, no, I'm going to do that. I'm going to leave my lights on because I'm an American. And the other people like, yeah, this is a good idea to help save our fellow neighbors. So, yeah, it is kind of disturbing that you're sort of thinking about it in that way as well, is that this might be the last time we'll ever see this kind of cooperation. But anyway.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Continue here.
p.m. The blackout is lifted, and Angelinos go to bed thinking it was just another drill. But at 2:21 in the morning, LA residents wake to the scream of air raid sirens. And the city is again thrust into darkness.
Searchlights start sweeping over the skies. And you have all of these people starting to run out of their homes trying to see what it is that they're looking at.
It's becoming increasingly clear whatever's happening in Los Angeles isn't just another drill. At 3:06 a.m., the searchlights converge on a target over Culver City, and Los Angeles erupts.
The 37th Coast Artillery Brigade starts firing 12-pounder guns that lob 3-inch shells up into the atmosphere. The sound is enormous. A lot of the people mistake it for the impact of bombs striking the Earth from enemy attack.
You can only imagine what this guy had to have looked like that night. You've got these orange tracer lights in the air, bursts in the sky. No one had ever seen anything like this in the United States. To a lot of people in Los Angeles, it seems like it's the end of the world, like it's doomsday.
Yeah. So imagine that you just got back from the Ling Garden after passing out for the evening. You're awake. You're awakened by essentially the sky exploding, right? And you're in the middle of wartime. That would be kind of crazy. Yeah, I've never. I mean, we get like the 4th of July. We get a little bit of stuff like that, I guess, but nothing like that, right? So whatever's up there is getting the full attention of the U.S. Army, who's who's on site there, using those searchlights. That's like going to be massive chaos, right? That'd be crazy.
But I guess I'm also kind of just thinking the parallels to today may be actually. Let me back up. Because obviously there are wars that are continuing to go on right now in other parts of the world, right?
It's really like Lebanon kind of.
It's kind of like Lebanon right now, you know. And I can just imagine there's so much that social media is allowing people outside of the war to view what it's like to be in a country that's at war. It's kind of crazy. Just the parallel right now that I see.
It's the closest one that we have, right? Exactly.
And we're because even right now, obviously this happened like 70 years ago or so. I'm not doing the math right now on that one, but that obviously, you know, I feel very apart from that. And that's feeling apart from that because of time. Right now, I feel so apart from what's happening in the Middle East just because of geography.
Yeah, but these folks here, and even I think there was a couple, balloons even up in the Northwest that the Japanese had and sort of dropped with these bombs. I don't think like none of them went off, but that's the kind of stuff that they were doing back in those days. That was the kind of stuff that we were subject to. That's the kind of stuff that the folks here in LA were subject to. But it gets even weirder, believe me, this whole battle of LA, as we're going to see.
All right, here we go.
Phone calls flood the city's information lines with wildly differing accounts of sightings in the sky.
Eyewitness reports start pouring into military authorities. We have reports of hundreds of enemy aircraft flying overhead. We have reports of aircraft crashing throughout the Los Angeles area, presumably shot down by air defenses.
The only lights you've got are the searchlights and the anti-aircraft guns firing, which just add to the sense that they are in a war zone. This is absolute pandemonium. A lot of people are just trying to get the hell out of there. They're piling into cars and driving. There's gridlock. 5 people are killed. 3 fatalities as a result of traffic accidents and chaos.
Right.
And 2 people die of stress-induced heart attacks.
That'd be me right there.
And it's pitch black.
But nothing's been shot down. No bombs have been dropped. What's the story? What actually happened?
Military command orders a ceasefire at 4:14 a.m.
There's an amazing photo they're going to show here
pretty
soon.
At 7:25 a.m. Daylight brings more questions than answers.
Hollywood
local
land.
Newspapers print a flurry of conflicting reports.
The most iconic image
that photo right there
is a photograph that appears in the newspaper with 8 spotlights shining up into the sky on this object that's floating in the middle. You can't really make out what the object is because it's brightened up by all the spotlights.
And it hasn't been debunked. That's one other thing I want people to know is this has not been debunked as just a weather balloon or some nonsense. I mean, look at the number of spotlights that are on that thing. This is if you're into UAP or UFOs or even just sort of a casual, dabbler into that subject. This is one of the most amazing photos that I've ever seen. This is like really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, I've never seen this. I've never seen this before, and that is very interesting. Because I mean, obviously, to your point, it hasn't been debunked. But even as I sit here and look at this, you know, in my head, I'm thinking, is it because of the way all of those light beams are meeting towards the middle there? Is that maybe
Yeah, is that
creating
what's
that
causing
effect?
it? Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's just curious the shape that
Yeah,
it created.
it is interesting that way. And then you also think just also, the amount of fear that went into all this happening. I mean, who knows
Sure.
what that really is? But if you look at it, that looks like all hands on deck. This is some crazy shit that's happening. If I'm a soldier on the ground, I look up and see that. No matter what it is, I'm like, I'm definitely freaking out.
Right, right. Here you're thinking that you're fighting Germany or whoever or
Yeah.
Japan. Oh wait, which one was this one now? I
Well, it'd
forget
be
now.
Japan. It'd be
It'd
more
be Japan.
Japan in this case, sending over something, which is possible. It could be a balloon, but
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
that balloon would have lasted that long up there, if that were the case.
My gosh. All right, well, we'll keep going here.
But not even the military can agree on what, if anything, was there.
The Secretary of the Navy, Frank Knox, came out immediately after the Battle of Los Angeles and announced that the air defense guns had been firing at nothing. He says this is a result of rising panic, of jittery nerves, that those manning the coastal defense batteries were also scared.
But then Henry Stimson,
They
the
saw
Secretary of
something.
War,
Come
gives
on.
a press conference, and he says, no, there were planes present, and they weren't United States aircraft.
In 1942, the concept of a flying saucer isn't really part of the American lexicon at all.
It doesn't exist
However,
yet.
investigators looking back on the Battle of Los Angeles essentially backdate that idea into the stories surrounding what might have happened that night.
Yeah, that's the thing. It wasn't until Kenneth Arnold in 1947, a pilot actually up here in the Northwest, spotted a bunch of disc kind of shaped objects, and he didn't say flying saucer. It said it looked like it was the saucer. I think that you skip across a lake or something like it had that kind of. That's kind of how the UFO kind of thing kind of really happened.
Right.
About 5 years after this, after the war. So again, they were saying that they're firing at nothing. That photo says otherwise. They're focused. All those spotlights are focused on something. It's not nothing up there. Come
Right.
on. It's
Right.
ridiculous. It's like swamp gas. Come on.
So at this point in our video, I have to admit to something. When I saw the title for the episode, I was kind of thinking aliens, and then of course as we started viewing the video, I was like, oh, this is war related, so a little bit more like the a Foo Fighters episode that I think we'll do at some point. But yeah, or that we did rather. See, I mess up on the timeline now. But anyway,
Time flies.
So this is interesting indeed. So we'll
Yes,
continue
sir.
here.
Some of the eyewitness statements help fuel this theory that this is a UFO because of this strange ability to be very slow on the radar and then suddenly it speeds up, that it's maybe hovering, then suddenly it's moving very fast, that it's at a low altitude and then it's at a high altitude. All of these help fuel this idea that maybe this is some kind of unknown aircraft from another planet that's coming down to Earth.
There are going to be questions from the highest ranks of leadership and command in the military and civilian government. And reports about this incident go all the way to the Secretary of War. They go all the way to U.S. Army Chief of Staff George Marshall. And they have to report to the president what happened in L.A.
Proponents of the UFO theory point to a series of unauthenticated memos.
There are a number of documents floating around purporting to be from George Marshall to FDR, talking about the recovery of 2 craft. One of these was apparently recovered off the coast between Los Angeles and Catalina Island, the other in the San Bernardino Mountains.
Marshall also goes on to allegedly explain to FDR in these memos that the objects that were recovered didn't resemble any conventional aircraft, and he presumes that whatever these objects were of an interplanetary origin.
The eyewitness reports that come in the night of the air raid include many descriptions of unusual aircraft.
Yeah, so some of those documents, I mean, they're not proven necessarily to be 100% accurate. But I think it makes them a lot more sense because there were radar hits and eyewitness testimony that there was definitely something there. Again, the first government explanation was, so they're just scared and they're just firing into the sky. Why would that happen? That doesn't make any sense. Army protocols, I'm sure, don't just allow for something like that. So something was
trigger
there.
happy.
Yeah, and if it was just a regular plane, it would have got lit up and would have been destroyed like immediately. What they were saying earlier in this video, we were talking about like a number of planes, like 15 to 20. That kind of jives a lot with kind of how some of these UAP UFO sightings happen. There's usually there's sometimes there's one, but there's usually a bunch of different ones around with it. So it's almost like a kind of a swarm. But the fact that it was indicated to have move at speeds that we weren't capable of at the time, both I guess horizontally and vertically. I don't know. It's pretty compelling. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So far, to me, it's quite compelling. And to be, again, brutally honest, I've never heard of this story before. So
it's not talked about a lot unless you're kind of into the thing.
Sure.
And as we'll find out as we go on with the show, we're going to be a lot of things that people haven't known about or seen previously. And it's actually kind of good that you didn't watch it, because I kind of like to see the reaction.
Yeah, for sure. Here we go. Continuing.
The U.S. will encounter even more unidentified flying objects as the war continues.
Towards the end of World War II, Allied pilots begin to describe being followed by very strange lights over the skies of Europe, and they nicknamed them Foo Fighters.
Yep. And that again, that ties in as kind of the war goes on. The more tech that we employ, the more the war became more violent. It seemed like these sightings became more and more over the course of the war. And I can only imagine as a pilot, again, looking out the window and seeing some crazy shit like that. Like, what is going on here? It's not ball lightning, not some atmospheric, just because it doesn't get replicated. And that's the thing. It's like when these things happen, there's no explanation for it other than when you eliminate everything else, you kind of have to go with what's left over, which is it's not from here.
Well, and so we did talk about the Foo Fighters in a previous episode, so we'll link to that in the description box below for those of you who may not have seen that yet. So we'll continue here.
Whatever these objects were, it was said that they would usually shine in red, yellow, and green. They would fly alongside the Allied aircraft at speeds up to 200 miles an hour. Sometimes there would be one. Sometimes there could be several of them.
Some ufologists speculate that FDR himself was a believer in extraterrestrial life.
Allegedly, this unauthenticated memo written by FDR in February of 1944 is sent
to
a special committee on non-terrestrial science and technology. Supposedly, in this memo, FDR is slowly coming to grips with the idea that the planet Earth is not the only one that's able to house intelligent life. He says that we will take advantage of these wonders that have come to us after we've won the wars.
We already knew how easily excitable
which makes sense logically
the American
when you think
population
about
was from an event from 1938.
I'm speaking from the roof of broadcasting.
Steve, this is one of those things.
New York City.
Yeah.
It's a watershed moment in popular culture for sure.
The city as Martians approach.
Orson Welles and his radio broadcast dramatization of the War of the Worlds. It was done in a false documentary style, as if it was actually happening.
A shockingly large
were a
number of
bunch of
people
trolls.
thought they were listening to an actual broadcast announcing the arrival of extraterrestrial aliens who were making war with the planet Earth.
I know this wasn't quite necessarily related to the topic that they put in here, but I thought it was kind of cool that they put it in there because it does kind of illustrate, if you're looking at it from maybe a skeptic's perspective, that yeah, we just had this happen a few years earlier and everybody freaked the F out about it and thought it was real. And so you could see in that environment, plus having now World War II effectively on your doorstep, right?
Right.
How it could end up being some sort of like mass hysteria type of situation. And again, I would say if the army wasn't involved in it, and there wasn't that photo, and there wasn't the reports of all the radar hits that they got, then that would probably be the most likely thing that happened. Is that everybody just sort of saw something and then sort of freaked out, and it really wasn't anything. Because again, if you could be tricked by a radio show, and you're not even using your your visual senses on that, just listen to something like that. I can see that happening. That's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, I think if it weren't for if it weren't for Pearl Harbor, sorry to say this, I think people would have been like, we've already seen this kind of hysteria, pop up because somebody thought that they could fool us into thinking things were real.
Right.
So it would have been interesting had Pearl Harbor not happened, how this whole Battle of Los Angeles would have played out. Or
Exactly.
at least the
Yeah.
aftermath of it, right?
Yeah, for certain. Yeah.
All right. Continuing.
The American public, although it likes to think of itself as very sophisticated and intelligent, is not immune to the effects of mass hysteria. They flooded telephone switchboards for their local police forces and their local media, demanding assistance and demanding answers about what was happening in the alien invasion of the United States.
On February 25th, 1942, the helplessness and fear Angelinos felt was very real, even if an imminent invasion was not. We may never know what triggered the barrage, be it a phantom aircraft or a case of nerves. Either way, the Battle of LA remains one of World War II's enduring, unsolved mysteries.
And it hasn't changed. It's been one of those. There's a number of there's another one that we'll get into eventually, and it was not locally related, but the UFO surge over Washington D.C. in 1952. If you haven't looked at that one, you should go look it up. Really interesting what happened there. And again, really bad government explanations, like really just stupid, like things like temperature inversion. So anyway, you should, if you haven't seen that, go ahead and get a little bit of sneak preview. One of these days we'll have it out here, along with all of our good and fun local stuff that we're going to get into.
Well, I mean, just a little bit more of the political commentary that I brought in earlier in this conversation is that it'd be interesting. It would definitely be interesting if this were all happening now. Okay, same conditions, but obviously with enough knowledge of what could possibly be out there. If this was happening now, like I said, there would not have been any adoption at all to, like, let's say the situation was kind of hearkening to the Quiet Place. Let's say we got intel that that an alien civilization that's slowly about to invade Earth is attracted to light. Let's say, okay. To your point from earlier, 50% of the population go, that's not true, and we'll just keep their lights on because they want to play their Xbox or whatnot. And there would not have been. It would be interesting to know if there would be like near 100% participation to making sure that everybody is safe, or are we going to fall into like today's society, just the obligatory divisiveness that people exhibit on the daily, not just here in the US, but really globally. So yeah, it's fascinating. It's not a fun thought experiment because at the end of the day, we'll be invaded,
Right.
and there'll be many deaths. But
Yeah, yeah. I think it's also kind of scary to think about, um, what it actually takes to get us united, and that seems to be war. Unless there's a
yeah,
war for our country, it seems like that people are going to go and be polarized about 50-50. And I don't think that we definitely don't want to get into a war. But minus that, I don't see how our society would be able to deal with an incident like this. And this is the reason why I think maybe if the government does actually know what's going on, with this kind of stuff, or there is evidence that we can call disclosure, I can
yeah.
understand to an extent why they wouldn't release it
Oh
yet,
yeah,
because you look at what would happen. You'd have all the religious nuts freaking out. You'd have all the survivalists and all the other weirdos who would want to go attack something like this, or other people who don't agree with them because of the amount of panic that might happen. I can see why you would want a slow release, which is kind of what I think is happening. I think, again, if you look at the history of this topic, UAP, UFOs, non-human intelligence, aliens, whatever you want to call it, from your generation, kind of how they refer to it, it's been going on for more than just World War II. There's evidence this has been going on for thousands of years that we've been visited. And
right.
so, if you soberly look at it, calculated, and try to take out the emotion on it, there's so much evidence that that this is a real thing, that it's kind of silly to try to debunk it as just nonsense, at
Yeah,
least in my
it's very.
opinion.
I would agree. I would agree, and that's the reason why we've got this show.
Heck
So,
yeah.
well, if you enjoyed this content, please give it a like and share it across your socials to help get the word out about our show. If you hadn't already, please subscribe, and on YouTube, hit that bell icon to make sure that you don't miss out on any new videos that we release. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.